is our $500 Miata, and this is $2,500 of performance mods that we're about to put on it. Now you may be wondering, why dump so much money and time into such a cheap car? The answer is pretty simple. We want to beat a Ferrari around track with this old hunk of junk. When we bought it, there was no chance it could do something like that. But after getting it all put together, having it painted, and modifying every single part of the suspension, we're slowly inching it closer to its goal. However, we have yet to put any power-adding modification on the car. And in order to beat a Ferrari, that's going to be pretty important. So today, we install 6 performance modifications and then test the car on the road for the very first time and see if we're within Ferrari territory or if we should have never bought this thing in the first place. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Jackson, you're going to dump so much money into this little Miata and it's probably not going to get a whole lot of extra power because as some of you might know, Miatas, they have pretty small engines, this one being the smallest. This is a 1.6 liter engine that makes pretty much no power. However, if we're planning to beat a supercar, we're gonna need some extra juice. We're gonna see how much power we can really extract from this motor, and we do have quite a few things to make the car quicker. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that sticky tires and suspension does a lot on the racetrack, but it probably won't be enough on its own. So we're gonna have to see how much power we can extract from this engine, and then we'll see if we're gonna need a different engine. But there's only one way to find that out, and that's to see if we can get this really fast. I don't know where we should start. Will, where should we start?
We could start easy with the intake.
Nothing better than an intake, I'll tell you what.
Mod 1, intake!
The first mod we're gonna do is to solve one of the Miata's biggest issues right now. This is the intake. Somebody did do us a favor by putting a non-factory intake on, but it does move around quite a bit, which isn't necessarily the biggest problem, but the biggest problem is this, right here. This is a small little gap right here, and that is the headers, which means they get incredibly hot. This is the intake, which preferably needs cold air. So right now, the engine is sucking in a ton of hot air, which is not necessarily great for performance. And we're looking for performance, which is why we have gone ahead and got this. A heat shield and a different intake system. This should ideally block the heat from coming over to the intake. It's not perfect because the intake is still all the way back here, but it's a lot better. And hopefully the engine will be a whole lot happier. So let's get to getting this one off. Somebody really, this is some real engineering right here.
Oh my God, I did not realize that's how that was.
It's just zip tied to the body of the car.
Wow, that's actually crazy.
Wait, what the?
Don't worry about that.
Installing a cold air intake is one of the most simple and satisfying mods you can do to a car. On an old car like the Miata, it's as simple as removing a few hose clamps to take the old air filter out. With that done, now we can install the upgraded heat shield, which will hopefully help funnel cooler air into the intake, helping us make a bit more power. A cold air intake usually doesn't get you too much extra power, but what it can do is make the car sound way cooler. And because of how weird the Miata engine bay is, maybe the gains will be noticeable. With the new filter on and everything bolted securely into place, we should be good to go. Just like that, the intake is in. That was the easiest of the mods. It's only gonna get harder from here, but hopefully some of the heat will now be blocked, or at least most of it, I hope. And hopefully that'll mean less heat soak, more power. But you never know. It looks more sporty in the engine bay.
It does look better.
Mod 2, door bushings!
The next mod is rather straightforward, but it makes a huge difference. This is the modification. Now, it looks like kind of nothing, and honestly, it isn't really much. It's really a piece of plastic, but it makes a massive difference. With convertibles, there's a lot of flex in the car itself. There's obviously no roof, which means it's not a very rigid thing. This car can flex around a bit. This soft top is not offering any structure. So the next strongest point of the car is the door. And if your door does all that, it's not very strong. So what this does is actually just a door bushing. It mounts right here where the original door bushing goes, and then it nestles perfectly into down here where it goes. And then it'll stop the door from moving around a lot, and in turn, actually make the car a lot more rigid than it originally was. This can increase the car's handling by quite a lot for literally less than $40. Made by Flying Miata, by the way. So if you want these and you have a Miata, go check it out. And they're allegedly pretty easy to install. It's just literally two bolts. I think we can do that. That's crazy. Now we do the other side. Same process, pretty easy. I love mods like this. It's a lot of reward for not a lot of work and not a lot of money.
Ignore the fact that it's a screw on this side.
To be honest with you, the original door bushings, they weren't here for some reason. When the past owner stripped the car to do the paint job that he did, he did take quite a few things off the vehicle. One of which was the original door bushings, the really soft rubbery ones. So that's why there's none here, and also why there's no bolts. So I'm just having to improvise with some bolts that I had, because for some reason everything threads into a Miata. Dude, that sounds more subtle. Like they ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
That's pretty good.
Mod 3, short shifter.
Next, we have a very exciting mod. Actually, probably the one I'm most excited for. It's gonna replace this ye old shifter. Pretty good shifter, but it could be better. Let me show you. An IRP shifter. And it's gonna be a whole lot better, but we do need to take apart what looks like pretty much the entire center console. So let's do that, and then install this, and then feel the best shifts on earth. At least that's the hope. To install the short shifter, we first have to remove the factory shifter. And in the Miata, that means taking out the entire center console. Luckily for us, it's not super difficult. And with the shift knob removed alongside all the bolts, we can pry it off and see what's lurking underneath it.
Oh, okay.
Some of that is factory.
That's so weird, dude. I hate that.
I think I need gloves for this. Are those like nuts?
What the? Dude, that's so gross.
I'm so confused. Oh my goodness.
Really rusty in there.
With all the mystery garbage vacuumed out, we can start removing the factory shifter. It comes out pretty easily, and with a few bolts on the plate that separates the transmission from the interior and a few more on the shifter itself removed, it should just pop right out.
Oh my gluten.
Juice! Dreaded juice. The old one is out! Installing the new shifter is immediately proving to be much more difficult than removing the old one. Because the bushings on it are all brand new, it's very difficult to get it to slot into the mechanism in the transmission that allows it to change gears. And even if we do get it in, it's so stiff that we can't actually test if it's working, which is adding to the confusion. After trying and failing for about 20 minutes, Will's decided he has a new method of getting it installed: brute force and ignorance. So let's see if that works. I really wouldn't do that.
Just tap.
I think it's really bad. Yeah, it's not. I don't think so. I think it's bad.
I think it's great.
No, it's now super loose.
It was down.
No, it wasn't. I just pulled it out with so much ease.
Yeah, you pulled that out with ease too.
All right, try it again.
It 100% goes right in.
With a few hits from a metal sledgehammer, the shifter fits perfectly, somehow. And now we can bolt it into place. These styles of short shifters require a bit of tuning to work perfectly. In our case, we have a screw that you insert on each side of the shifter that stops it from going any further than it's supposed to. With those installed and set perfectly, we can feel it out. The shifter is installed, and I am drenched in sweat and transmission fluid, but all for this. Demonstration purposes. Wah, 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 wah. I'm super happy. The shifter feels absolutely incredible and moves the shifter much closer to the steering wheel, which is ideal for track driving. With everything tightened down, we can reinstall the rest of the interior over the new shifter and get ready to install the next mod, which is one you might not be expecting.
Mod 4 engine mounts.
Hello, we're under the car. And that's for good reason. We're about to replace the engine mounts. Now, these are upgraded engine mounts. They have better bushings, they're very nice metal on the outside, and they should be stiffer, which will mean car stiffer, car handle better.
Something like that, sure.
All I know is we spent money on this and it's supposed to do something good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna install it because the money's been spent.
You can shift faster because there's less slop in the system.
And faster shifting means faster around track. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy because then we'll completely jinx ourselves. Every time I say that, it takes way longer. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be incredibly difficult and we're gonna struggle a lot. So let's get the old ones out so then we can put the new ones in. Now the first step, as Will is doing here, is while hitting me with it, is attaching the screw jack to the oil pan.
Attaching is a loose term.
Now the reason he's doing this is because obviously the engine mounts hold the engine to the car itself. So to take the engine mounts out, we need to take all of the engine pressure off of them, hold it up for a little bit, and then jam the new ones in, put the engine back down onto the new ones, and bam! Allegedly, that's how it works. It's a little intimidating lifting an engine up, though, with no engine mounts. Okay, so the screw jack's in place. It's holding the weight of the engine right now, and we should be able to get all the bolts off. So let's do that. When you think of changing motor mounts, it sounds pretty intimidating, but actually, it isn't terribly difficult. With the weight of the engine off the mounts, you can unbolt them, and since the old ones are slightly worn, they slide out with no problem. The new ones, however, are giving us a bit more of an issue. The holes simply won't line up. And after spending a good 20 minutes trying to figure it out, I'm starting to feel kinda defeated. But then we decided to do a bit more Googling and realized that the engine mounts were put together incorrectly, which is a little surprising, but luckily also a simple fix. With the mounts put together correctly this time, everything lines up perfectly. So now we can bolt the engine back together and hope that everything is attached properly. And just like that, the engine mounts are in. Will, test it? Oh, good. Oh, yeah.
It's definitely in.
Mod 5 big brake kit.
Now, in order to make our $500 Miata quite fast around track and beat supercars, we need to be able to brake. Braking is important. Now, observe. Bad brakes. Have you observed for long enough? And look at the front. Also bad brakes. And you don't even need to see it. You just know, I'm telling you. You know what's good?
Yeah.
Good brakes.
Whoa, man.
$2,000 worth of brakes here. We have not only Brembos, but we also have giant front Willwoods. Most of the braking happens at the front, so you want the biggest brakes at the front. Look at these. We have the big brake kit for a Miata.
Oh, that's fancy.
I've always wanted something like this. I always looked it up online and I was like, those brakes, those are expensive, but one day I'm gonna put them on a car. Now, I didn't think it'd be a $500 Miata, but boy, I am excited about it. Yeah, we're gonna do this. It should hopefully be relatively simple, although I've never done a big brake kit before, and they have like these floating thingies that are happening.
Multi-piece rotors.
But yeah.
How hard can it be?
Right, how hard could it be?
The famous last words of every overconfident mechanic. If only the boys knew the struggles that lay ahead of them.
Most of this big brake kit install is actually familiar territory for us, because it's fairly similar to a regular brake job. We're starting with the front, because in theory, that'll be the most complicated. Removing the old rotors, pads, and calipers is super simple, and in just a few minutes we have everything off. But now we're running into a new issue, the brake lines. To maximize performance, we've elected to add some stronger stainless steel brake lines to improve performance and pedal feel. The old lines are extremely corroded though, and are giving us a ton of trouble to remove. With everything disconnected, it's still unclear how to actually detach the lines themselves. After prying, hammering, and twisting everything, we can't figure it out. But luckily, Will decided to try to just pull it really hard. And somehow, it seems to be working. With the new brake line installed, I can mount the new rotor, caliper, and pads, and do the same on the other side. It seems like they're actually going on perfectly. So with everything tightened down, the front big brake kit installation is finally done. Remember that part where I said the fronts are all done? I lied, but I didn't know I was lying. Turns out when you bolt the wheel back on, or just the studs, you can no longer spin it.
Yeah.
And that's because it's touching the rear brake pad when it's bolted all the way down, which is not gonna work. I think there are these little spacers in the kit that kind of push this caliper forward, which is obviously at least part of the reason why it's touching that pad. So if we take those spacers out, I'm hoping our problem is just solved magically.
I think it will.
That would be so cool, and then I would be so confused as to why the spacers were even included in the kit. Maybe it's for like a
NB
Miata? I don't know. Let's see if that fixes it. Luckily for me, removing these spacers is super simple. Just a couple bolts and I can put it all back together. And now I can bolt the wheel back on and see if it works. Heck yeah, dude. Look at that. Oh, let me just go this way now.
That's the way it'll actually be going mostly.
Yeah, honestly, that was really an easy fix. With the front all functioning properly, finally, we can now move to the rear, which should be easier because we're just using brand new OEM parts, plus some Brembo rotors. Thankfully, this rear is going a lot better, and everything is going on perfectly. However, we're running into one small issue, and it might be one that we're not able to fix without a new part, and that's the brake hardline. In the last Miata video, we took out the rear subframe, which required us to remove one of the brake lines, and when we tried attaching it to the new brake line, it immediately stripped. Luckily, we got a new one in quickly, so let's install it.
We have a new hard line. Here it is, because we broke the old one. Not very interesting, but it's gonna make it work. And
We can make it interesting. Montage the brake line.
What the hell? Okay, it sounds like
cinematic brake line.
cinematic brake line install, but
Bro, we should cinematic brake line install with some like crazy EDM music.
cinematic brake line install.
With the lines all hooked up, we can do the last step of the brake job, which is to bleed the brakes. To do this, we have to go to every corner of the car, starting with the furthest away from the braking system. I can then pump the pedal a bunch to pressurize. I'm pumping. And Will can open a valve on the caliper to let out all the air that was in the system. Now, we just have to repeat this a few times on each caliper, and we should be good to go.
The brakes are bled, and I got this delicious cup of the forbidden juice to prove it. I'm not gonna drink it, even though Jackson probably wants me to, but the brakes are bled. We got some good pedal feel. They seem to be all functioning correctly, and now the car will be able to stop. Now, we just have to bolt the exhaust on, and then we'll be good to go. And we can drive it maybe, hopefully, maybe.
Yes. Mod 6 exhaust.
When we started to install the new exhaust, we quickly found a problem. The old manifold studs had been stripped and the new nuts simply wouldn't thread onto them. So now we need to drill the old studs out and replace them with new bolts. But the only way to make that happen is to remove the entire manifold, which is what we're doing right now.
Oh yeah, baby.
Headers are now off. The quality on these are insane. If these are factory Mazda headers, I got some words for Mazda, bro. But they were relatively easy to get out. Now we just need to figure out how to get these off. As per usual, the easiest method is just brute force. So we're gonna bust the old angle grinder out and try to get the studs as small as possible. And then we'll bring in the drill and painstakingly drill out all of the old metal. This is a slow and tedious process, but it's our only method at this point. We have drilled out the exhaust, and by we, I mean mostly Will.
Hey, you know what? It was a team effort.
I just did one of them and Will did too. But now, as you can see, well, kind of see, the holes are there. They don't perfectly line up.
But there are holes for small bolts that will hopefully hold the exhaust on.
Yes. So we are now gonna reinstall the headers, and then finally, after what should have been 5 minutes and then took a whole day, put the exhaust on. It's the simple things that always go wrong with cars. And they take way longer than you think they're gonna take. So let's get the headers back on. I think it should be relatively straightforward now, but you never really know. So yeah, I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope it all works out.
You just put the header on upside down and just dump it out the hood.
Shoot it out the hood. Why didn't we think of that? We decided this time around to go with the exhaust facing the normal way. And honestly, it's pretty easy to install. Most header systems are really tough to take on and off because the bolts are in hard to reach places. But with the Miata, it's a piece of cake. And with those in, we can finally attach the rest of the exhaust. Or at least, that's what we thought. For some reason, none of the exhaust pieces are lining up correctly. And we're really struggling to figure out why. But after some digging, I think I understand now. We had a bit of a dilemma. We were trying to get the exhaust on, but for some reason it just wasn't mounting correctly and it didn't look right. And we couldn't figure out what the problem was because the exhaust that came off the car was not stock. So we actually didn't know at the time that we were missing a piece. And that piece was the catalytic converter. Now, we decided to opt not to go for an actual catalytic converter because the car's exempt from any emissions rules here in this state. So we're going with a test pipe, which is the same length as a catalytic converter, but it just deletes it out. And I'm hoping that this is the correct piece that we were missing, and now the exhaust will go on smoothly. And smoothly, it did go. With the correct piece, everything now bolts perfectly into place. Who would have thought? And we can finally hear what the Flying Miata exhaust sounds like. The O2 sensor wasn't plugged in, so it's just leaking from that hole. I should probably fix that real quick, and then we'll retry it again. All right, take two. O2 sensor is plugged in this time, so let's hope that it actually works and it's not leaking from other places. Yes! Success! Now before we drive it though, we have another problem that I need to take care of that I sort of remembered last minute. And that's the tail lights. We can't drive around without tail lights. I could put tail lights in, I have tail lights that can go in, and it seems easy. But there is a second issue, and that is we have no key to open the trunk. The trunk is not the ignition key. Oh wait. I was kidding, apparently. I didn't know that worked. I thought I tried that before. Wow, I look real stupid right now. There's no issue. Let's put the taillights in. What am I doing? Luckily, the taillights were super easy. And with them in, we could take this thing on the road. We are inside the Miata for its maiden voyage, and it's awesome. First off, the shifter is, I feel like I'm a real race car driver. Look at this. That's pretty good, but most importantly, because we've done so many suspension modifications, we need to know how it feels in a turn. Very good. I could have gotten into that turn with way more speed. This car is absolutely planted now. It makes a lot of rattling sounds though when you hit bumps, which is slightly alarming. And I'm a little worried maybe we haven't bolted everything together perfectly. Look how sharp the steering is.
Oh my god.
And oh no.
Oh, she rides like butter.
Besides all the rattles, if you ignore all the rattling, which is, I'm honestly not sure what it is. It feels amazing. And we have some incredibly sticky tires. Tires that are probably way overkill for the amount of power that we have in this car. Everybody's wanted to see. That's the actuation there on the old pop-up headlights. Oh yeah. And that makes it way faster. So now we're in aerodynamic mode. Check this turn out. Ready? Stay there. I mean, you could go around that probably at 100 miles an hour and it'd be fine. Well, there's two problems that have presented themselves. The suspension is amazing, and I think that the suspension is capable of turning with the same aggression as a Ferrari. The suspension is there. However, if we want to beat a Ferrari, there's two issues. One, we are really down on power. This car is super slow. I'll demonstrate. I'm going to go flat out in second gear right now. Oh my God. It's a bit slow. It's a bit sluggish. We're gonna need to fix that problem. And secondly, the interior, like the steering wheel, the seats, they're not really matching the whole vibe of being on track, and I can move around a bit in these seats when I'm turning. The steering wheel is super big. I think we'll get a sharper turning with a new steering wheel. So we're gonna need to fix both of those problems, and we're gonna need to fix them fast if we want to beat a Ferrari around track. Subscribe to the channel. You're not gonna want to miss the next episode. Right, Vanessa?
Right.